All right, everybody, welcome in to episode 98. It feels like 1998 in here. It's two countries, two Americas, all sports, the only American and Brazilian sports broadcast, always weekly, coming live to your studios from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, where I'm at, Nicholas Hill, and from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, where we find Gustavo Tomazeli. Us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great. It's actually I don't know what you guys call in America. It's the day before holiday start because tomorrow is holiday. Is the Our Lady of Appearance? It's a holiday. It's a religious holiday tomorrow. It's also Children's Day tomorrow in Brazil. So I'm finally gonna have a vacation time. I'm going to travel with my family, so looking forward to it. But before I travel, I had to, do this podcast because we have so much to talk about.
Absolutely.
It's that time of the
Obviously,
year
it's
in
the
America,
eve. That's the eve before the holiday. So
Eve
obviously,
before the holiday.
hopefully everyone in Brazil has a great holiday there. And before we go into this, obviously, I do want to acknowledge the attacks that happened in Israel over the weekend and just send our best thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by the invasion by Hamas and the ongoing war. And it's just the whole thing is just awful. And I won't go into it beyond that because of how
Yeah,
complicated it is.
that's what I was gonna say. It's a very complicated issue. Definitely sending the thoughts and prayers to all the families affected to it. And since this is a globally podcast that involves, as we always talk, two countries, two Americas, yes, we definitely understand the situation. There's Americans and Brazilians involved in this scenario that is in a very like very unpeace area in the war. But hopefully, that's we send some thoughts and prayers. Also, I wanna congratulate my YouTube channel, Gus Nadia. We reach 1,000 subscribers
Woo!
uh,
Let's go.
on Sunday when we broadcast this podcast on your Facebook page, Nick, on my Facebook page, and also on my YouTube channel, Gus Nadia. We reach 1,000 subscribers. It's a little bit of a milestone. It's not easy to reach there, and definitely this podcast made a very difference on reaching this little milestone. But I'm happy, and definitely, and I have to keep going because now I have to reach 4,000 broadcasting hours. So I need as much hours live as possible, and this podcast helps a lot me reaching other milestones in my YouTube channel. But after all these acknowledgments, let's start with some baseball. I'm watching here. The Diamondbacks are destroying the Dodgers again.
Yeah, and of course, if this score holds, the Dodgers will not only lose their series but get swept, which for the payroll that they have would be absolutely unacceptable. I mean, I feel like that would have to be the end of the line for Joe Maddenley if you get swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks with the roster that they have. To get swept by Arizona, that's unacceptable.
And also, Clayton Kershaw definitely. I think he's gonna get to the Hall of Fame. He's a definitely a once in a generation pitcher. He's a talent, but he just can't get done in the postseason. He just can't.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know they won in 2020, right? But like that's the COVID year. It's a shortened 60 games. It doesn't I mean it counts, but it doesn't mean as much as a full
There were
season.
there were no home field advantage.
Exactly. It was all play in Texas. So they still haven't won a World Series in front of their home crowd in Dodger Stadium since 1988. You know, like it just is what it is. That is the facts of the Los Angeles Dodgers. They, for all the crap that we give, like the Buffalo Bills and um, insert franchise like the Phoenix Suns or the Utah Jazz or something like that. Like the Los Angeles Dodgers are really no different than any of those franchises. Um, Constant perennial chokers every single year, and to lose to a team like Arizona here, in the fashion, I mean, they let up what 6 runs in the first inning in Game One. They let up 4, so far they're down 4-0 right here, and I saw Corey Taylor just went down again. Um, so that's a strikeout there for Manipuli, but just a disaster so far for the
Oh yeah,
for the
totally.
Dodgers.
And no, yeah, totally. I feel like it's a definitely disaster performance in the postseason by the Dodgers. Definitely, people be asking for some heads, especially the manager Dave Roberts, who, you know, if you take out the COVID year 2020, had some truly disappointing performance in the postseason. And again, of course you can say there were a lot of injury issues, and there were some like payroll they have to relieve because they're going to try to get Otani now in this next off season. But it's just, Arizona, they were in the bottom of the league 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean it's been a great turnaround, and I don't know why I said Joe Mattingly was the manager. You're right, it is Dave Roberts. I think he might have been the one before.
Oh no,
You know,
you're mistaken with the one, the former manager of the Los Angeles Angels.
oh yeah, absolutely. Um, but Dave Roberts, I mean, I mean, what I said applies to him, in terms of the constant failures here as the inning just ended there at the fifth inning. Now they're going into the top of the sixth. And hey, shout out Tess. As up for watching our show, Arizona throwing up. Not a fan of the Diamondbacks, clearly. She hopes that the Dodgers make a comeback. But anyway, what I'm throwing up about, though, is the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are, I mean, after winning 104 games this year, have pushed out just a complete pile of crap here in the NLDS again to the Philadelphia Phillies. Um, I don't understand how a team could be so good in the regular season and seemingly forget how to play baseball once you get to the NLDS for the second straight year in a row. It's one thing that happened last year, right? Like, okay, offshoots, flukes happen. But this is the second straight year where the Philadelphia Phillies just look like the better baseball team for about 23 of the 27 innings in this series. Philadelphia has been the better team. If it wasn't for a miraculous comeback in game two, the Braves would have gotten swept. And frankly, they are very, very fortunate that they didn't get swept here. And they get to play on tomorrow. But I'm telling you, man, I'm not feeling good about the Braves' chances in an elimination game in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Philly, it's paying off all the risks they took in the last, several years. Bryce Harper has been tremendous in the postseason. I saw a stat that when he homers, the Phillies doesn't lose. That's mind blowing. The Braves, with all the young talent they have, again, it looks like they're not gonna get it done. And um, I mean, they in the second straight year they're gonna lose to the Phillies after winning back to back divisional titles. So I guess it shows that it doesn't matter if you do a great regular season and beat your divisional rival in the regular season. When it comes to the postseason, you just can't get done. You just can't get it done.
Well, it just shows how much more important pitching is than having a great offensive lineup. Like, you can score all the home runs you want. I mean, the Braves scored over 300 home runs this year. One of the most, I believe it's the record in MLB, or one of the highest totals ever in the history of baseball. But when you get to the postseason, you're going to face great pitchers because these are only the best teams that are remaining. And when you're throwing out Bryce Elder on the mound in game three, and I understand the only reason why we're doing that is because Charlie Morton's hurt. And that's unfortunate, but we have to really start talking about Charlie Morton in terms of how valuable is he moving forward to this franchise, because he got hurt in 21 during the World Series, and now he's hurt again. 2 out of 3 postseason he is hurt. And we've seen how injuries have derailed other pitching prospects for the Braves. I just think of Mike Soroka, who was amazing. I thought he was going to be the ace of this franchise for years. And, he had that, I believe it was a Tommy John back in 2020. And he's disappeared since then. He's made like 2 starts since he got hurt back in the shortened COVID year. I don't think the Braves have the pitching here. And because we're gonna need Spencer Strider to channel his inner Tom Glavine tomorrow and go 6 or 7 plus in Philly and hold them in check. And Spencer Strider is an amazing pitcher. I don't know though if he's going to be able to pull it off. He can earn a lot of money tomorrow night if he goes in and puts out one of the greatest performances of his career. I think is what it's going to take for the Atlanta Braves to get back to Atlanta for a Game 5 on Saturday. So our hopes and dreams lay on the arm of Spencer Strider because, I think our offense will get some runs. Our offense gets some runs in every game. It seems like outside of, Game 1, which, and I will say, I know Brian Snitker won a World Series at 21, right? So I have to trust that he knows what he's doing to an extent. But why are we messing with the lineup? A lineup that won 104 games, that put over 300 home runs in the regular season. And he's doing experimentations now in a 5-game series when we're coming off a layoff because we were the number 1 seed. It didn't make any sense. And no wonder our offense has not looked good. In 3 games, we've scored 7 runs. That's terrible. For the Braves especially, by their standards, it's just not going to get it done against this Phillies team who right now, they, to me, look like the team to beat in the NL between them and obviously, Arizona. Because it looks like we're heading towards a Diamondbacks Phillies NLCS, which, who would have predicted that, right? So, I don't know. It's very frustrating, and I fear the worst for tomorrow for my Atlanta Braves because it just does not feel like this team has the confidence they need to pull it off. And especially it doesn't feel like their headspace is in the right. Like Orlando Arcia, poking the bear that is Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is known for his performances in the NLDS. Why, obviously it took a miraculous double play by Michael Harris to win on Monday. So why are you going to go out and poke the bear? So when Bryce Harper hit or Simon dingers every single time he was going up to the plate tonight, he was staring you down. Why are you in Philadelphia? Those people are the closest thing in baseball to rabid soccer fans, rabid college football fans. Citizens Bank Park is not a place you want to get more jumping than it already is going to be. And now they're going to be smelling blood in the water like sharks tomorrow. It's just going to be tough. If the Braves can somehow pull it off tomorrow, I think they'll win Game 5. But it's a true backs against the wall. I did not want to be in an elimination situation in Philadelphia, but here we are. And now we'll find out if this is going to be like the 98 Braves that Morgan Wallen sung about, or if they could be more like the 21 Braves that won a World Series.
Yeah, and I think the game tomorrow is going to affect the future of the franchise because, as you said, a lot of decisions are going to be made in the off season, and this game definitely have some implications. I think this game's going to go to extra innings, but I think the Phillies going to get it done. I think the Phillies are going to get it done. Unfortunately, Nick, the Braves, which I really like. I had amazing times at Tourist Park, SunTrust Park, and Turner Field. As much as I like the Braves, the Phillies are just more ready for this playoffs. And one interesting fact I want to bring it out is how much having this layoff, having this advantage of going straight to the NL and ALDS, because the Braves, if they lose, and the Dodgers, Orioles already 3 out of 4 eliminations are from teams that had the layoffs, had the advantage of going straight to the divisional series.
Yeah, I mean, baseball is a momentum sport more than any other sport. Well, I mean, basketball and baseball are your two most momentum-based sports, and it's so hard because in baseball, and I wish we had Jason here because I know he's a baseball guy. He could explain this much better than I could. Um, but how much of baseball is truly a mental sport? Because it's super hard to hit a tiny ball coming at you at 100 miles an hour with your bat, right? Or to have full control of your pitching command. And when you're in the season, you're playing 6 out of 7 days every single week, and it's just boom, game after game after game. And it's momentum, right? Like you are mentally in the headspace. But when you have a couple of days off like this, as a reward for having the best record, meanwhile these other teams are having these tiny free game series in between. Like they're staying on a normal routine, a normal schedule, and I think that's helping them out. I think that we're not really getting that much of a benefit as the top teams in terms of getting this rest. I think if you truly wanted to give the top teams a better shot at doing well in these series to actually give them the advantage, I think for one, you got to have those series be at least 5. I think the wild card series should be at least 5 games. Maybe it should be 7 games. Also, I think the DL series or DS series should all be 7 games as well. I mean, you're out on what, like a week to the season at most? There's no reason why these series have to be 5 games. The MLB should be openly advocating for more playoff games, because here's the thing: it's all about proportionality. You have 162 regular season games. All right, let's compare it to like the NBA that has 82 games, but you have to win 16 playoff games in the NBA to win the World Series, or win the NBA Finals. Excuse me. And NHL is the same way. You play 81 regular season hockey games. You have to win 16 games. Even in the NFL, it's 17 regular season games, but you win either 3 or 4. Actually, wait. Yeah, 3 or 4 games in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. But think about that proportionality. That's still like a quarter of the games of the regular season. Meanwhile, in baseball, you can win as little as 11.
Let's see. I mean, yeah, like if you win 2 wild cards, uh, 3 divisional rounds, at least 4 in the CS, 9, then 4 again,
It's 11 or
13.
13. It's 11 or 13.
Yeah, 11 or 13.
So even at the most, that's 13 compared to 162. That's a much smaller proportionality than like 3 of 17.
8%. It's 8% of the games you play in a regular season. You had to win in the postseason.
Yeah, so like at most, right? So 8%. Meanwhile, let's say 4 of 17. That's 23.5% for the NFL. Meanwhile, for the NBA, it's 19.5%. And for the NHL, it's 19.8%.
I think we are the first ones in the media to ever make that analysis about games needed to win in the postseason compared to games you play in the regular season. I never saw any article about it.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I mean, even take NASCAR for example. It's a 10-race playoff, and you have 26 regular season races, and people are complain about this all the time. I've complained about, well, it doesn't make any sense to have a playoffs in racing, but 10 of 26 is 38.4%. Like that's a pretty significant. It's a whole third of the season. Like you have to be really good across a large chunk of the season to be in the championship battle. And I'll mention that a little bit later on how that's going. But in baseball, if you somehow manage 162 games, you just have to be lucky and get hot. And you don't have to be hot for that long to win it all. I mean, 21 Brace proved that. They stunk for the most of the season, but snuck their way in because the NL East was terrible, and they won the entire thing because they managed to get hot at the right time. I just think that, I get either do expanded playoffs right and force every series to be 7, or don't do expanded playoffs at all and go back to the days where the division winners just went straight to the CS to their championship.
No, the divisionals. I think it was like
Yeah.
3, and then the best team in the wild card, was like 4 teams.
Yeah. I think we seriously just need to consider.
But
know I'm
that's
coming
not
from
gonna
a
happen.
place of being a
Leagues want to
base fan.
expand.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say leagues want to expand playoff as much as possible. Take college football into the consideration.
Yeah, but even then, think about college football. That's 12 games in college football, and in a 12-team playoff, that's 4. That'll be 4 games you'll have to win versus 12 regular season games. That's a third, 33%. So, you literally a quarter of your games will be the playoffs. It's a large chunk of the season. You have to be really good. And I just think in baseball, we're not truly rewarding the best team. And it's kind of almost turning into like a March Madness situation where and I said this after the March Madness tournament, for me, I can't really take March Madness seriously as a true way to crown a champion at this point because of just how random it has gotten with the 1-game format. And it's just impossible to truly crown the best team. In baseball, to me, with this current format, as the Diamondbacks have the bases loaded and the bottom of in the 5th inning, so Arizona might add on some more runs here at Lourdes Gurriel Jr. at the plate versus Grove. It doesn't make any sense. Like the Baltimore Orioles, the Orioles didn't deserve to get swept to end their season. Like they were so good all year, but they just ran into a more experienced and talented Rangers team. And I think this is another thing too to look at the seeding. I feel like the Orioles and Braves got tougher matchups than the 2 seeds got in the first round. Now, I know for the Dodgers, they're about to get swept themselves, but the Astros got the Twins, who were easily the worst division champion. So they got the easier matchup as the 2 seed. And I think that should be addressed as well, because the 1 seed should have the easiest matchup.
Yeah, but so then you're gonna have to decide about overall record. But overall record in baseball can be misleading because, like the Twins, they had a good record, but they played in an atrocious division.
Right. And shout out to them. They have finally won 3 playoff games this postseason, so they got that drought over with. It doesn't mean much, but hey, they won some games. I don't know. I think you would have to consider doing something like that, though. It's just the way this. Not every single one of your top teams should be flailing like this. It just does not feel like the baseball playoffs are in an amazing spot right now. And also, it just feels like the extra games aren't working. Like, I feel like most people are still focusing more on football than the baseball playoffs. Like, on Saturday, when I look at the Twitter timeline, outside of all the Israel stuff, when I was looking at just sports stuff, it was still mostly college football over baseball. Even with the Vols being off last week, it was just mostly college football. People talking about Alabama, Texas A&M, and Texas, Alabama, or not Texas, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. Texas, Alabama happened weeks ago. Or talking about like Louisville destroyed Notre Dame. But no one was talking about the baseball games. And so I feel like if baseball is trying to generate more interest by having more playoff games, are failing. And partially it's having playoff games on in the middle of the day, like forcing Tampa to play at 2 p.m. on a weekday. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like the NFL puts their playoff games in a place where you can see them. At a time you can see them. The NBA never starts a playoff game before 7 p.m. on a weekday. why in the world is baseball? And I understand that they want one game on at a time, but we in 2023 have multiple channels. You can air games at the same time. We have YouTube TV multi-view. Um, they need to get with the times, and really, just baseball in general needs to get with the times.
Yeah, but you know how baseball can be hard to change their ideas, and I mean, I feel like definitely that's why the NFL and even college football, that's why football as a whole, I feel like the sport of football is lucky that both the NFL and even college football, with all that, uh, craziness with conferences realignment, and they don't have a like a singularity uh, decision, they're pushing a way to make their sport even more popular and more attractive. Meanwhile, baseball and even basketball in some capacity is not. And I feel like and that's true. It's even in Brazil here, with all that mismanagement in soccer, we put our games in people where people can watch, like either Sunday afternoon or midweek at night. We don't put a playoff game in the Brazilian Cup or Libertadores in, like, Wednesday at 4 p.m., or even the Brazilian National Championship big game on a Thursday afternoon. It's more on the weekend.
Exactly, and I think one other point too is a lot of the biggest brands are not in the playoffs this season too. Like the Yankees aren't in there. I saw someone say, the playoffs are more boring when the Yankees aren't there, or the Mets aren't there, or the Red Sox aren't there, or Shohei Otani is not there. Like
No, I
all.
mean, that's true. Like I know the Angels sucked for a year, and this year must be really painful because I mean, the Angels fans has been the most misleading fans of all time, because I remember in June and July, with all the trading rumors, the Angels front office would be like, "We're gonna go all in. We're gonna make the playoffs," and then bam, they didn't. With Shohei Otani and uh, oh my God,
And Mike
it's
Trout, Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. I mean, like, it's definitely uh it would be more interest if the Yankees and the Angels and probably the Mets and the Red Sox were in it. I mean, I know the Dodgers, it's a big brand in some capacity, but right now we're heading for Angels, Diamondbacks, Phillies, more likely, even, which they are popular in their cities. I mean, people in Phoenix, Arizona, and Philadelphia love their teams, and they're going to make their stadiums, crowded. You just mentioned Citizens Bank Park are going to be roaring tomorrow. But in terms of national media and casual sports fan attention, I football is still gonna dominate.
Yeah, I mean, the casual sports fan. How many players can the average sports fan name on Arizona? Probably none to very few. Obviously, Bryce Harper in the Phillies, Nick Castellanos, Zach Wheeler, players like that in the Phillies. They have more name recognition, especially just going to the World Series. And of course, the
And
Astros have been here time and time again for years, so several of their players are kind of more well known. But
they're probably more well known about a scandal than of the performances they did over the years. A lot of people associate them with the sign stealing and the banging, and it's so funny that one of the most talked baseball players right now is not on the field. It's Trevor Bauer.
oh, absolutely, with the whole situation where apparently the whole um, I forget exactly what the whole situation is. I don't want to misspeak on it.
Yeah, I believe is that he's saying that the woman that allegedly accused him of sexual assault set the whole thing up, already was envisioned according to the allegations that he provided. She was trying to set him up even before even before she met him, and she debunked that, and it's just a mess situation, definitely. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know enough to really go
yeah,
to
no,
deliver a
it's a
definitive
lot of
on that.
yeah,
Uh,
me too.
but
I'm
I
just
mean, if it's true that she set him up and lied about him, I mean, she should face jail time. Because like stuff like that, one, it hurts other victims because you're going to create this culture of people really questioning if we should believe them, which, I think you should believe. Obviously, I know there's the incidents of proven guilty, but we have to take this stuff seriously in order for people to be believed. But if we have people out here actively lying about these situations, then you're going to make it really, really hard for others who really need that help. And two, you're ruining people's lives. I mean, Trevor Bauer isn't going to be young forever. He can't pitch forever. And if he lost a significant portion of his prime because somebody lied about him committing illegal acts, it's just wrong. So, and I also know the Bill Tucker situation has some elements too that people are debating as well in terms of its veracity. But, that's all I'll say on that. But kind of going back over to the Astros. Um, obviously a lot of people are still associating with that cheating scandal. But this is their seventh straight appearance in the LCS. You don't cheat your way to seven straight LCS appearances. I mean, you cheated to some of them, but you can't cheat to all of them. And I think they proved time and time again, especially with the World Series win last year, that they are a legitimate dynasty in the modern baseball world. And now they get to try to defend their title as the permanent baseball dynasty against an in-state rival in the Texas Rangers, the upstart Rangers, with all the additions they had in the offseason. They dominated Baltimore. Now that we know this ALCS, just kind of what is your thoughts on that matchup?
I think definitely the Rangers have more to prove than the Astros because all the scenario that you lay out. Uh, the Rangers is just this new, vibrant uh, franchise that was, the last time they were in this position was 2011. So, the time that the Astros were dominating, the Rangers were in the bottom. So it was a resurrection versus a dynasty. And I mean, of course, not having Jacob DeGrom is a big miss, but with Nathan Eovaldi killing on the pit on the mound and all the talent they have, I think that the Rangers are going to make it to the World Series. I really truly believe.
Yeah, because the Astros almost blew the AL West to them. Like the Rangers had a real shot to take the division from them right there at the end, but they just weren't able to pull it off. And I think now this is a time for them to finish that off. And I think the Astros, and up until last year and time and time again, had
They,
lost in
they
spots like this.
they were the best two teams in the National League, no, in the American League, no doubt about it. They were the best two teams in the American League.
Absolutely. Um, for me, I think obviously for the Astros, can they solve that pitching line for the Rangers? I mean, we saw what what's his name, Alvarez, Yolanda Alvarez, and obviously he's having just an incredible run. He had like a plus over a .500 OPS. I mean, just unbelievable stuff that he is doing right now. You're actually going to need him and the rest of that lineup to really produce in order to take out the Texas Rangers. And I feel like it's foolish to bet against the Astros because I mean they're just so good here in the postseason normally. But I do have a feeling though about those Rangers. I'm going to take the Rangers at 6.
Rangers in 7.
And right now for the NLCS, assuming the Diamondbacks hold up here, I'm going to say I still am holding out the faith. I think we'll find a way somehow to pull it off tomorrow in Philly, go back to Atlanta, and pull off a game 5. But that's just me hoping. So if that
All
were to
right.
happen, it's like opposite of Titans. I feel like the Braves, I have reason to believe in them versus the Titans where I have no reason to believe in them.
Sorry to crush your optimism, but the Phillies are winning tomorrow, and they're gonna face the Diamondbacks.
And in that potential series, what do you think happens, Phillies and Diamondbacks?
I think the Phillies are the. this series looks like the Orioles and Rangers. Both great teams, but one is more ready in the scenario. I think it's gonna be it's gonna be Dallas versus Philly. Almost like the Eagles and Cowboys. So it's gonna be Rangers and Phillies,
Oh,
literally.
those crowds would be nuts for
And
that
it's funny.
series.
I mean, literally, the Philly stadiums is literally across the street from the Eagle Stadium, and the Ranger Stadium is literally in the same complex in the Cowboy Stadium. So we can say it's a little bit like a NFL rivalry. It would have been.
Oh yeah. Um, I'm gonna say if the Braves somehow win and play the Diamondbacks, I'm gonna say the Braves take them out in five, and they would play the Rangers. So that's what I'm hoping. That's what I believe. Uh, please, Braves, don't waste another season. But we'll just have to see if tomorrow is the end of the line for the Atlanta Braves. Well, I'm going to keep chopping on regardless. Um, okay, so to transition over to that other team in the Arlington complex, how about those Dallas Cowboys proving once again they don't belong in prime time, getting absolutely blasted by the San Francisco 49ers 42 to 10. I think this game proves San Francisco's the best team in the NFL right now. I think they are the favorites, the team to beat.
And as painful as it is, because I like the Cowboys, they're in my second team in the NFL. Unfortunately, it just shows the Cowboys are fraud. Because a lot of people are saying they were in the Super Bowl bubble. Please give me a break. Unfortunately, they might make to the postseason somehow with the wild card, but they are a fraud, and it just shows how much Dak Prescott missed Kellen Moore, and he is not adjust well, and you know the defense might make this team get to the playoffs, but without a reliable offense, they're not gonna make it even to the championship game.
Yeah, because what this game proved is you're going to have elite quarterback play to beat the Niners because they're so loaded on both sides of the football. It's going to be hard to run the ball on them. You're going to need a quarterback that can withstand the pressure and really deliver. And Dak Prescott's not it. He just isn't it.
It's like either that or like the Eagles got last year, be really lucky and made the 49ers play with a like what 4 or 5 quarterback
Yeah.
string.
Josh Johnson, a guy that hadn't started a game in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So that was just sad. But Brock Purdy, if he can, I'm starting to see comparisons to Tom Brady with Brock Purdy. To me, I can see some similarities in terms of the way they really prioritize accuracy. They were both late round picks, guys you didn't see coming. And there's an argument to be made that Brock Purdy wouldn't be this good anywhere else, but he's benefiting from the Shanahan system. I think there might be some parallels between Purdy and Brady.
Yeah, totally, and both weren't the brought up as the saviors of the franchise. Drew Bledsoe was going to be the quarterback that was going to bring titles to New England. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, the chosen one was Trey Lance. I mean, San Francisco move up
Absolutely.
to get him. But both franchises might find their reliable and in winning quarterback in the 7th round. I think Brady was the 6th round, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, Brady was in the 6th round, pick 199, and Brock Purdy was literally the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, but he's now Mr. Relevant. I mean, that's his nickname. If you go on his Wikipedia, his nickname is Mr. Relevant, because he may be an MVP candidate. But I think honestly, Christian McCaffrey should be the leading MVP candidate in the NFL. What he's doing right now, scoring in 14 straight games. I mean, he's by far the best running back right now in the league. There's no competition for it. I mean, what he's doing is unreal. And granted, he's surrounded by great talent, but still, he's taking full advantage of it. And they may not lose more than like 2 or 3 games this year. I'm not saying they're going 17-0. I think that's just too many games, but they're going to be the number one seed, I think.
And again, either is going to have a league quarterback with a and a really impressive performance, or San Francisco again deals with some injuries to make this team lose. Because
Right.
I think for me the Super Bowl matchup, if there were any disasters, any big injuries, is the Chiefs and the 49ers again.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is playing on the top of his game right now. I
But
obviously
Patrick Mahomes regular season is one thing and postseason another thing. Like,
well, that's true, but honestly, right now, I'm more impressed with like the Dolphins, for example, than I am the Chiefs. More impressed with
not
like
convinced. I still not convinced about the Dolphins.
I guess that's true, right? I mean,
Because
obviously they got blown up by the
they
Bills
didn't
last week.
perform. They didn't perform well in the big games. Like, I mean, when they had to perform in a higher capacity against the Bills, they just couldn't.
Right. And then of course, obviously I'm not really convinced with the Bills. They didn't look good at all this past week. Of course, I called that they wouldn't look good going over to London against the London Jaguars, who were already stationed over there and winning. But those would be, I say, the two biggest threats to them in the AFC. Because obviously I don't see anyone in their division being a threat because the Chargers and Raiders have their coaches are too stupid to compete with them, and then the Broncos are just a disaster. Um, so, I mean, the Chiefs are going to win their division. Obviously, AFC South, you can forget about them. AFC North, I don't see anyone there being able to compete with them. So,
Maybe Cincinnati, if they can get if they get their shit together.
yeah, well, I mean, they are slow. Obviously, they looked better on Sunday, but they were playing Arizona. So, obviously, I doubt Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or Baltimore will be any of those teams. So, but yeah, I think clearly the biggest threat to the Niners is the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are 5-0, but I don't think they've looked convincing in their wins. Um, and plus, honestly, their schedule hasn't been extremely difficult up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that in the NFC probably is more narrow than the AFC. The AFC is wide open. Even the team that was going to be the favorite, the Chiefs, are stumbling, as you point out. And the Bills, which were the second favorite, also been stumbling. Truly, they have great performance like the one they had this weekend versus Dolphins. But then you think about it, it's the same team that blew that Jets game on the opener when they lost Aaron Rodgers in the first drive. So I don't see any team in the AFC being on the top, like, already kind of hit their ceiling. Like, I feel like the 49ers and the Eagles are the in another area, like in a in a in a zone of their own. In the AFC, I just don't see it. Even the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I believe the 49ers and Eagles will have to play at some point this season. So I cannot wait for like December the 3rd is when they play. So that'll be the game right there. That's going to be an amazing game. Um, but I would agree with you. Those are clearly the two best teams right now. I'll tell you who's not the best player quarterback team right now is the Packers and Jordan Love. Jordan Love, man, I wanted to believe in him as the next quarterback in Green Bay, but right now it's
He
I'm
looks
not.
floppy. He looks
Yeah,
floppy.
yeah. How much of a leash does Jordan Love have? Like, how soon does he have to prove himself before, um, we start thinking about a new quarterback in Green Bay?
They're gonna give at least by Thanksgiving next year. They're not gonna pull up this year. This year is a rebuilding year. They lost Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you think about it, Jordan Love was gonna play no matter what because you know Aaron Rodgers. You know, maybe he would have got hurt as a Green Bay Packer. You don't know. So, was Jordan Love here? With or without Aaron Rodgers as a Packer? But I think the Malafleur definitely is going to give maybe to next year for Jordan Love. But he looks sloppy, and when you have a kid and you micromanage so much your kid, then when you let him go, he looks sloppy, and then he looks all over the place. That's what the the Packers coaching staff is doing with Jordan Love.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, if he was so good, would he have been able to sit on the bench for this long in Green Bay? There was a reason why they were willing to keep Aaron Rodgers for as long as they did, because deep down they didn't really trust him. Like Kansas City, once they knew what they had in Patrick Mahomes, they're like, "All right, Alex Smith, bye bye. We don't need you anymore. You go. You can get kicked to the curb. We don't care."
Yeah. Like the Ravens did with Joe Flacco.
Exactly. Teams know what they have, and the Packers will sit here and try to convince you until they're blue in the face that yes, we believe in Jordan Love. But you can't go out against the Raiders of all teams and throw for 182 and 3 interceptions, have a passer rating of 32. You just cannot do that. I mean, the Raiders aren't a good team, and you lost to them. You lost to Josh McDaniels. I mean, how does that make you? Like Matt LaFleur. I mean, you know, there's some serious soul searching in Green Bay because they're nowhere close to a playoff team right now. And this is the worst Green Bay team I've seen in a very long time. Just wild to see the Packers be bad. So, and also speaking of being bad, the Broncos. Russell Wilson, I am seriously beginning to believe that if it wasn't for Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson wouldn't be in the league still. Because ever since he's left Seattle, he has looked lost. And he's looked washed. Yeah, I mean, in the fourth quarter of this game they had this past week against the Jets, he had 69 passing yards entering the fourth quarter. He's getting paid $230 million. $230 million for 69 passing yards. I mean, how do we explain this? How can this be explained? I mean, how is this even possible that Russell Wilson is this bad of a quarterback for Denver?
And I have to wonder, are they gonna fire uh
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton like they did with Nathaniel Hackett? Like they're gonna run coach after coach? And it's funny, like one of the most regrettable decisions, for the second straight year was not bet the under in terms of Broncos win, because the Broncos in the last year they were hyped, then bad season. This year they were hyped again, and they're bad again.
I don't know how Vance Joseph is still has a job. I mean, he made Zach Wilson look competent. And Nathaniel Hackett look competent. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett walking into Mile High Stadium and being able to fist bump his team in a win. I mean, that's a new low. That is a new low for Denver. And a season just full of them. And Sean Payton needs to stop talking and he needs to start figuring out some stuff, because I think they got to move on from Russell. But I don't know how you do it. Who is going to take that contract? No one is going to take that $230 million contract. You're going to be high up in the draft, I guess, but still, you've traded away so many picks to Seattle for Russell Wilson. I mean, Seattle is going to be reaping the rewards. I mean, this is like when the Brooklyn Nets traded all their picks, all their assets for the big three from Boston, which resulted in like one Eastern Conference semifinals appearance. And they sucked for years while the Celtics kept on getting like lottery picks. It was weird because like the Celtics would have like the number one pick in the lottery, and then they would be playing on the Eastern Conference Finals with all the Nets draft picks. And it feels like that's what the Seattle Seahawks are going to be doing for years with the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Russell Wilson trade, and also the divorce between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. Pete was the winner. Like I believe this season they're gonna make the playoffs because Last year they came really close. It was heartbreaking the way they were eliminated. Heartbreaking.
Well, Seattle
This-
made it last year. They were the 7th seed.
oh yeah, that's true. The Lions
Yeah.
didn't. I forgot Lions
Yeah,
were hard.
Seattle was the 7th seed.
Oh, Seattle survived by a thin margin. They beat the Rams in overtime, and that victory eliminated the Lions.
That's correct. Yes.
And and then the Lions beat the Packers to make Seattle get there. But yeah, it's just I mean, and when does the patience of the ownership we just took over not a long time ago of the Broncos is gonna have, because now even the defense, which for years and years were the landmark of this team, is not good anymore. Look what happened in the Miami game.
I mean, Vance Joseph still having a job is insane to me. How do you any defensive corner give up 70 and still have his job? That doesn't make any sense. Denver is completely unserious. Um, the whole Broncos country, let's ride deal. I mean, Broncos country, let's cry. That's all I have to say to that, because disaster, just an absolute train wreck of an organization. I don't know how they recover from this anytime soon, because Russell Wilson is not going to remember how to play football. Somewhere in a club, somewhere in Atlanta, future Hendricks is laughing to the bank. If you know, you know. Anyway, also speaking of divorces that didn't work, Bill Belichick. It's becoming clear and clear that Tom Brady might have made this man as well. Get Bill Belichick's second worst loss ever as head coach, losing 34-0 to
The
the New
Saints.
Orleans Saints. I think it's feeling like the end for Belichick here. It's definitely the end for Mac Jones, but it's feeling like the end. I mean, they've scored what, 3 points in the last 2 games. Just
And they conceded like 60 plus points. I mean, nothing compared to the giving up 70 points in one game, but the Patriots, and also like how can this defensive genius, as everybody praised Belichick, give up so many points at home? At home.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy how when Tom Brady left, all of a sudden they start giving up a ton of points. I mean, it's just crazy how that worked. Some people would say it's luck, but I think there's a point defensively when you have a really good offense. I think it makes you play that much harder, because you only need so much to win. But then when you have an offense that doesn't do anything, at a certain point as a defense, you look around and you're like, why are we still playing hard? And I think there's an element of give up there. And I think that Belichick is getting so old at this point that um, you're not able to convince your team to play hard anymore. And I think for New England, I just think it's time for a change. And they need some new blood. They need some fresh blood. I mean, they bring in guys like Ezekiel Elliott in the offseason. Like that, how is that going to help you? Ezekiel Elliott's been holding back the Cowboys for years. The Patriots, they're just a dead organization at this point. They're irrelevant. They're completely irrelevant. And I can't believe that we're sitting here saying this, but the Patriots are an irrelevant franchise. And they were relevant the day that Tom Brady left.
What's crazy for me is, from what I know, when I heard from the past few years, we're like, oh, Robert Kraft is really close to Tom Brady, and he didn't get along with Belichick. But then Brady left, and he kept Belichick. So when does Kraft's patience is going to run out? When is enough to be like, hey, Bill Belichick, we truly appreciate all the 6 rings you brought to New England. We, as a fans, as an organization, will always love you, but we need to look front, not back. We need to look in the windshield, not in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. And that should be the mentality. And I'm just curious when New England will have that mentality. It's time for a new day in Foxborough, And we'll just see how long it takes them to realize it. And it's unfortunate, and obviously, it's been an amazing era for New England football, but uh, all empires come to an end eventually, and that empire has come to its end. Um, some quick AFC South talk. The Colts took out the Titans, just as I predicted last week, 23-16. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson is going to be out now for several weeks due to a shoulder injury. I mean, I am definitely afraid this is going to become the next like RG3 Andrew Luck situation for the Colts because, I mean, Anthony Richardson's every game this year has gone injured in some sort because he takes a lot of hits. And because I think he is a very special talent for the Indianapolis Colts. And, but you got to play, you got to stay healthy in order to play. And I don't know how healthy he's going to be able to stay with the hits that he's taking. So I'm hoping that when he comes back, he adjusts his play style for Indianapolis. Now, Gardner Minshew is more than a capable backup, and I still think the Colts will be competitive with him at quarterback. But clearly, Anthony Richardson provides a different dimension that Minshew doesn't. Meanwhile, over on the Titans side, once again, can't play on the road. Granted, this was Tannehill's best performance on the road, and DeAndre Hopkins had a really good day, but we couldn't run the ball, and had chances to tie that game, to potentially even win that game, and just couldn't get it done. So 0-3 on the road now, 2-0 at home, heading to a London game this week on Sunday morning against the Baltimore Ravens. Does the home Titan show up, or does the road Titan show up in London? I don't know. But it's just prerogatory for the Titans because they're good enough to win games, but I know they're nowhere close good enough to win the Super Bowl. So I still want them to tank, honestly, for a better draft pick. But at the same time, in the here and now, I want them to win games. So it's damned if you do and damned if you don't, because I want them to win games. But at the same time, every game we win, I know that's a worse draft spot.
Quick update in Arizona. The Dodgers somehow managed to score twice, so it's 4-2 Diamondbacks in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Absolutely, and the Dodgers still have 2 on base here. So let's see what happened. There's a replay. It was a blooper to left field. Good job. Blooper to left field, a single, and that brought home 2 runs there. So Dodgers aren't dead yet. 4-2, top of the 7th, 2 outs, and they're going to make a pitching change. So once we win the bat, everything could change in Arizona. So we'll see if the Diamondbacks can hold on the last Dodger surge here at the end of this game. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, Titans. Part of me wants them to win, part of me wants them to tank. And it's frustrating because it just feels like we're going to sit around 500. And I think that's the absolute worst spot to be in because at 500, you're not going to get a good draft pick, but you're going to not be in the playoffs either. So it just sucks. I want them to either suck completely or be a championship contender. I don't want to be in the middle because there's no benefit to being in the middle in the NFL.
Yeah, it's you're just because being the situation just means you're completely in stagnation mode because you're not a contender and you're not a rebuilder. You're just stagnated.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how the Titans play out the rest of the year. Meanwhile, as we mentioned earlier, the Jaguars beat the Bills in London. A very, very good defensive performance. The Jaguars, they had a really tough start to the season, but hey, going to London, their home, their second home, probably soon to be their first home eventually one day. Did dividends. I think the Jaguars, they make sense in London to me. Jacksonville is not that big of a city. I really think that the Jaguars should call London home. It just makes sense to me. But they're 3-2 now, and the Jaguars and the Colts are tied for the division. Meanwhile, the Texans had a really tough loss to the Falcons by 2 points. So now they're a game back behind. Of course, the Titans are a game behind as well. This division is interesting because I thought the Jaguars would be by far the best team, and I still think they'll win it. But the Colts and the Texans to me we're gonna have something to say about this division. Um, Maybe the Colts less so now with the injury to Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I think I wasn't expecting the AF South to be that open by week 6, but that's why Titans fans are as more hopeful than they thought they would coming to week 6.
Absolutely. So I guess let's go ahead and get into some week 6 picks.
So the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, I mean, no brainer about that. The Chiefs beat the Broncos, right, Nick?
Oh, easy.
And,
I
and
mean,
then
they
they
beat him like 15 straight times or something like that.
and definitely they're gonna cover the spread. I think they're even gonna
Mm,
win by 2 touchdowns.
I would agree with that.
The London game, I believe your Titans are gonna win. I think the home Titans are gonna show up.
In a rare move, I actually agree. Give me the Titans.
The 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Brazilian time games. The 3-2 Atlanta Falcons to the 2-3 Commanders. And what kind of Commanders team is going to show up to this game? The one they play against the Bears?
Man, they better hope not, because that was embarrassing for Washington. Oh my gosh, getting ran off the field by Chicago. Not a good look. But honestly, I don't trust Atlanta that much. I still don't. This other game, honestly, where Washington could come back and play a lot better. Give me the Commanders. I just have a feeling here.
Speaking of the Bears, coming off this big win versus Commanders, the 1-4 Chicago Bears played the divisional rival 1-4 Vikings. So give me the Bears. Who would have thought the Bears might be ahead of the Vikings coming week 6?
I'd agree with that. I think the Vikings they just have those heartbreaking losses. Just I think they're going to psychologically get to them. Give me the Bears.
The 2-3, who would have thought? 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals against the 3-1 and undefeated on the road Seattle Seahawks.
Give me Bengals. I think the Bengals starting to show something. Burrow's starting to get something going. This is a must win.
Give me the Bengals too. The 2-2 Cleveland Browns play the undefeated 5-0 49ers. Give me the Niners. And then I think the spread is -7 for the San Francisco. I'll bet the over.
Oh no, yeah, they should cover. I mean, literally, the Browns will probably play PJ Walker if Deshaun Watson can't go, and hopefully, if he can't go, because I mean, Dorian Thompson Robinson, horrifically bad quarterback for the Browns, Niners.
The 4-1 Miami Dolphins host the 0-5 Carolina Panthers. Give me
I feel
the
bad for
Dolphins.
Bryce Young. I mean, he
Yeah, I
has
feel
no
bad.
help.
I feel bad for Bryce Young. I feel truly
No
bad.
help. Dolphins.
The divisional matchup, the 3-2 excuse me, Jacksonville Jaguars, back to being Jacksonville Jaguars, in Jacksonville, play the 3-2 and undefeated on the road Colts. So this might be one of the decisive matchups for the division.
Yeah, and I think the Jaguars will win, especially without Anthony. If Anthony Richardson were playing, I would be tempted to take the Colts, but he is not. So I'll take Jacksonville.
Give me Jacksonville too. The 2-3 Houston Texans hosting 3-2 Saints. The line is -1.5 for New Orleans, but give me the Texans.
I agree. Give me the Texans.
Now to the 4 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Brazilian time games. I think this matchup is going to be horrendous. The 2-3 Las Vegas Raiders face the 1-4 New England Patriots. Of course, is the mentor.
The Josh McDaniels Bowl.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels versus the Patriots. The mentor versus the mentoree.
And this game had a wild ending last year too. Remember, it was
oh my, the stupidest play ever.
Yeah.
I mean, no, the second stupidest play ever. We're gonna talk about the stupidest play ever in a little
Oh
bit.
yes. But I'm actually gonna go with Vegas. Give me the Raiders to get to 500.
Yeah, give me the Raiders too. The 2-3 and 2-3 and 0-2 at home Los Angeles Rams played the 1-4 and also 0-2 on the road Arizona Cardinals. So you gonna have Rams winning the first game at home or the Cardinals winning the first game on the road? Give me the Rams.
You know what? Give me Josh Dobbs, the Rocket Man. I'm so proud of what he's done this year for Arizona. I thought he has looked really good in that role. Give me Arizona.
Um, the 2-3 New York Jets hosting the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles, and as much as the Jets fans are hopeful after winning on the road, give me Philly.
Yeah, give me Philly too.
And the 3-1 Buccaneers playing the 4-1 Lions. I mean, who would have thought this game would be interesting at all when the
This
season
is the
started?
game of the day. This is like the game of the day on Sunday.
Yeah,
Uh,
who would have thought? Who would have thought when the season started on week 6 that Lions and the Buccaneers would have been one of the most interesting matchups of the week?
Absolutely. And I think coming off the bye week, I like Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. I'm sure Baker Mayfield will be juiced up coming from the Cotton Bowl and the Red River Shootout.
Give me Buccaneers too. The Sunday night football game, uh, some might say is the New York rivalry. Others might say it's a New Jersey team versus a true New York team. But the atrocious 1-4 Giants going to Oker Park in Buffalo area to play the 3-2 Buffalo Bills. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna cover the spread, but give me the Bills.
Yeah. What? How many more times do we have to watch the New York Giants
Yeah,
in prime
like
time?
like if I was Daniel Jones, I would have been pissed. Like, come on, they time after time are gonna have to be exposed on prime time. I just want to play on a regular 1 p.m. game. Why?
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, obviously,
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
Daniel Jones isn't going to play in this game because of his injury. So it's going to be a backup. Um,
back, yeah. Congratulations on that 160 million 4 year like whoever did that, deserves the prize of this.
his agent is incredible, but the
Yeah,
Giants,
he's Daniel Jones' agent. Wow,
yeah,
he
I need him.
definitely deserves a praise.
I need him to negotiate my contracts.
Oh,
Um, but the Monday night game, I think, is pretty interesting. Cowboys at Chargers.
yeah, the Cowboys, losing, in California to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I think the Chargers are going to play better this game. Going to play. Chargers is going to be the better team, but somehow they're going to manage to blow up this game, and the Cowboys are going to win it.
See, because these are two teams that know how to lose big games. So when a rock meets an when a rock meets an unstoppable object, who wins? I don't know. I trust Justin Herbert to do something uh, over Dak Prescott. Give me the Chargers.
The Dallas Cowboys are minus two and a half line favorite. By the way,
I think that sounds about right. Plus, I mean, because SoFi Stadium will probably be half Cowboys fans anyway,
that's true.
as it always is. But let's transition over to the college football because, man, oh man, what a week of college football it was because Mario Cristobal. Holy cow, man. 30 seconds left in the game. Georgia Tech has no timeouts. One knee ends the game, but you run it for no reason. Your running back fumbles, and Georgia Tech then goes down the field in free plays and wins the game. I don't know how he isn't fired for this.
At home in Miami, Florida.
In front of 10 fans. Because there
No,
wasn't anyone
no,
there.
there were 10, 20.
20 fans. It's funny because I heard someone talk about this how, Yeah, the cherry on top of the embarrassment from Miami, if you sat around and watched the ACC Network post-game show, because the ACC Network apparently has a post-game show. I mean, two people watch it, but they have one. You could see the U signs being ripped down from the Miami Stadium and replaced with Dolphin signs, just to further rub it in that Miami doesn't have their own stadium. So just the whole thing, from a spectacle standpoint, just an absolute disaster for the Miami Hurricanes. And man, the rage for Miami fans on Saturday night, holy cow. I spent several hours on Saturday night
Me
listening
too.
to this Twitter space. You listen to that, Gus, right?
No, I watch all the live reactions on YouTube. It took me a while, but I found the press conference, the Mario Cristobal press conference, and his explanation was even it was, I don't know what's stupider, his decision or his explanation.
I mean, he basically said like there was 150 left and 120 left, and then it doesn't matter how much time was left, you can't fumble there. So he basically blamed his own players for the fumble.
And there were some players even questioning him, like why, like in the sidelines, asking why didn't he took a knee.
I mean, it's very clear that Mario Cristobal is a recruiter, not a coach.
I don't know who asked me about that, but a Brazilian friend of mine asked me about that, and I don't wonder your decision about it. He asked me, couldn't his players change the decision, and they themselves, the players, took a knee? Like,
I mean, I guess they could have, but someone somewhere had to have. I mean, what I think college teams really need, they need like a common sense coach. They need like okay, we're in this situation, we need to do X thing. Someone just to give the coach recommendations. Like, you score at the certain point, you look at the scoreboard, we decided to go for one, or we decided to go for two here. Like, Billy Napier needs this coach, right? Because he often goes for two in really stupid situations for no reason. Meanwhile, Mario Cristobal doesn't know when to take a knee. Or like Lane Kiffin will go for fourth downs that are just ridiculous. Like, coaches need common sense coaches, because some of these people think they're smarter than they actually are. When it comes to football, and sometimes they just don't do the most obvious thing.
And the players, I feel bad for them, because probably a lot of them, probably in the back of their minds, they were like, we should take a knee. But, if they go against the decision that their head coach or the coaching staff told them to do, they might have repercussions.
Yeah. And it's not the first time he's done it. Apparently, they did this a few years ago when he was at Oregon and gave Stanford a chance to win in that game as well. Just, I don't understand the arrogance. It is a privilege to win football games. Yes, Georgia Tech is not a good team, but it's a conference game. You've wrapped it up. You didn't have a good game. Like, Miami should have won this game by way more, but you were going to escape. Take the knee and get out of there.
And keep undefeated. You'll never know.
Exactly. Not all of us are undefeated. Like, the Vols still aren't undefeated.
Well, imagine that. They get the end of the regular season 11-1. That loss might hurt the chances of the Hurricanes made the college football playoff.
They're not going 11-1. Not with the team.
No, I know, but I mean, like I know I'm both optimistic or the most crazy, thought ever. But how about if they win 11-1? How much that loss is gonna, hurt the fans?
Yeah, I mean, that's just demoralizing, and you really have to question him as a recruit. Like, if you are a recruit, why would you go play at Miami when you can't trust your coach to make smart decisions, when you don't get to play on an on-campus stadium? All these Miami fans are running around acting like there's a big fan base, but they don't show up at their stadium. It just doesn't make sense. Their program right now doesn't make sense. This is not the U that won 5 national championships. It's a relic. It's no different than Pittsburgh or something.
I guess the destruction of the original Orange Bowl hurt the Miami football program more than they thought of.
Yeah, I mean, symbolically, that was the end of the U because the Orange Bowl was the U, and they need to find a way to build a new Orange Bowl because the Hard Rock Stadium is not the Orange Bowl. So, just more losses are coming. They play North Carolina this week. Yeah, spoiler alert, I think they'll lose that one too. Just disappointing for the Hurricanes. Um, Also disappointing in the ACC, at least ACC adjacent, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Holy cow! Not only losing to Louisville, but getting blown out. Shout out to Jason Wyrick. His Cardinals undefeated in the top 15. Uh, but wow, this just shocking to watch. Notre Dame just get absolutely blasted by Louisville. I mean, I think Marcus Freeman. I want Marcus Freeman to succeed at Notre Dame. Um, I am starting to question though if he will, because I think the recruiting so far looks to be a lot better than Brian Kelly's recruiting. But man, so far it's just not been impressive on the field. I mean, losing last year to Marshall in California at home, then this year, the whole situation with Notre Dame or with the Ohio State game where you didn't have 11 men in the field, and then again blown up by Louisville, a team that has been they've been undefeated, but they've kind of been shaky. They had to come back against Georgia Tech. They only beat Indiana by a touchdown. They're in the first year under Brom after a really bad coaching staff in Marcus and Scott Satterfield, who didn't really recruit that well. So they don't have like a fully blown talented roster. And Jason will absolutely, if he were on this show, he would back that up because he knows how bad Scott Satterfield is as a recruiter. But Marcus Freeman, he's just not getting it done at Notre Dame. I think this was a golden opportunity for Notre Dame to make the playoffs this year, and they have absolutely squandered it. And they're heading into the middle of October here with one of their biggest games of the year against USC. They're already done. There's nothing to play for. If you're Notre Dame, you're not in a conference. You're an independent. There's no conference title to play for. You already have 2 losses. Their season's done from a championship perspective.
Yeah, they might play for this weekend at least to get this, big win and at least be somehow in the top rankings. But you point out perfectly, Marcus Freeman always when you need it, a big performance in the big spotlight, they just don't do it. You know, going back even to last year when their biggest game of the year, I know it was a week 1 against Ohio State, and then they lost to Marshall. Back to back losses, and by week 3, their season was done. Like you talk about being done in the middle of October. By mid of September last year, their season was done.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, because they don't have a conference title race, I mean, that's the only way they are relevant. And year after year, they're just not relevant as a program because of this. And yeah, so that's just kind of it. And honestly, we probably won't talk about Notre Dame much more this season just because, well, they're no longer in a title conversation. So thanks for playing, Notre Dame fans. We'll see you again next year. Move on the other side. What is the ceiling for Louisville? Because I don't think they're a national title contender. But when you look at their schedule, their hardest games left are Duke, Miami, and Kentucky. And all 3 of those games are certainly winnable for Louisville. They play the 2 Virginia schools in Pittsburgh as well. There's a chance they could win all those games and go 12-0. I really do. Now, beyond that, I don't think they would be like Florida State.
Yeah, I was gonna say then that Florida State matchup in the ACC title. Then, if they win that game, then you have to put them in. You have to.
Oh yeah, there'll definitely be a playoff. And then also the pressure now on Florida State, I think, is so much higher, and Duke, because I mean Duke is undefeated still in league play. Florida State obviously is undefeated in league play. Also, you got to remember UNC is just sitting out there as well, undefeated in league play. Because remember, it's the top teams in the top 2 teams. There's no longer divisions in the ACC. They got rid of the Atlantic and they got rid of the Coastal. And it's crazy that we don't even talk about Clemson here because Clemson's 2 games behind. They're done. But UNC, they still have to play Miami this week. Later on, they get Duke and Clemson. They don't have to play Florida State. FSU, I believe they have to play Duke next week. And they play Miami later, but they don't play UNC or Louisville. There could be some really weird tiebreakers that start occurring here in the ACC because some of these teams don't play each other. Like UNC doesn't play Florida State or Louisville. Florida State doesn't play UNC or Louisville. Louisville doesn't play Florida State or UNC. It's going to get weird really quickly because only 2 teams can go to Charlotte.
And what are you going to decide on if they all go undefeated?
There's a chance they all could. So
and then you're gonna have to tie breaks like we do here in soccer by like what, a point differential?
Because I think honestly they would have to do something like rankings, and I think in a scenario where like UNC, Louisville, and Florida State are all undefeated, I mean you would have to. I think Louisville would be the one left out there of those 3. Because I think they would want Drake May versus Florida State. It's what ultimately the rankings would decide.
But then you can't make the rankings in a title game in a conference because then what? Then all the because like rankings are subjective, but
Just ask the 2008 Big 12 would disagree. Texas Tech, the best team Mike Leach, rest his soul, ever had at Texas Tech 2008 got screwed out of the Big 12 title game because of rankings.
That's true.
So, that's just, what happened in Texas as well that year got screwed up too because of the rankings. So it's happened before. And the ACC has a really weird, if you're going to get rid of divisions, I feel like you have to be playing like 9 conference games to justify it. And then that's going to be the thing with the SEC next year with the whole 8 game too. Who's going to make the SEC title game next year? Because certain teams aren't going to have to play certain teams in the SEC next year. And inevitably somebody's going to have an easier road to Atlanta. And so what we're seeing in the ACC this year beginning to set up is what we're going to be seeing in the SEC this time next year. Speaking of why we're going to see the SEC be like this next year, the Red River Shootout. What a game. What a game. And Boomer Sooner, because Brett Venables has proven that he indeed belongs in Norman, Oklahoma as their head coach. They beat Texas 34-30 on a last-second touchdown. It was just a great game. Like, I don't think Texas – I know they had a couple of turnovers.
Do you know what's the happiest of all in Dallas, Texas?
Who?
Greg Shankly.
Oh, yeah.
He was probably laughed his ass off.
Because this is about to be the SEC's rivalry here.
It was just like he's saying to the Big 12, like, oh, you got a great game this year? Oh, well, enjoy while it lasts.
Because, I mean, what other Big 12 games are even remotely close to what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah.
None. They'll fit right in the SEC. And I still think, honestly, I think both of these teams are going to run the table in the Big 12. I think you will see this matchup again in December, and whoever wins that game will go to the playoffs. So ultimately, this result may not mean much in the grand scheme of things. However, let me propose a scenario. If Texas beats Oklahoma in a really close game in the Big 12 championship, and they're both 12-1, should both be in the playoffs.
Only if there's not an undefeated ACC or an undefeated Pac-12.
I think that's fair. I mean, we'll have to see how the rest of the landscape shakes out, but I think that could end up being a scenario.
I guess.
To watch.
I guess or it might be a scenario, or like, let's say Florida State and Louisville, Florida State, UNC made to the ACC title game, and then Florida State loses, and then Texas win. is a decision between Oklahoma and Florida State, basically.
Yeah. I think honestly too, a discussion this might be an unthinkable discussion to have. I think there's a legit chance the SEC gets left out.
No, Georgia's going to run the table.
Well,
Oh,
they should. But what if Georgia loses somewhere? Because that's my next talking point here. That Georgia's the last undefeated SEC team. Of course, Kentucky got eviscerated by Georgia 51-13. Mizzou blew it at home. They had a giant lead on LSU and just absolutely blew it. The SEC is not that strong this year. It just isn't. It's nowhere near as strong as it has been.
I think it's more parity, but it's not strong. I think I saw a lot of parity. Like we always talk about wanting to have a parity in the SEC. This year it's totally parity, but it's a parity in the bottom.
Yeah. And here's my thing though. If Georgia somehow loses a game, I think there's an argument that a 12-1 Georgia SEC title would not have a great resume. I think a 12-1 Pac-12 title champion would have a much better resume. I think a 12-1 Big Ten champion would have a better resume. Hell, I think a 12-1 ACC champion would have at least an equal resume. The 12-1 Texas and Oklahoma would have better resumes.
Yeah, especially if you think about it, like if you take out the SEC championship, Georgia is not gonna play any top 10 teams. None.
No, because their only ranked teams left are Ole Miss and us in Tennessee, and and obviously we kind of screwed them over by losing to Florida. I mean, ironically, that Florida game on the long run that might screw over the SEC as a whole, because the conference just isn't as good now. If Bama keeps on winning, then I think that will take care of itself. If you have like a 11-1 Alabama versus a 12-0 Georgia, someone will get into the playoffs no matter what. But I don't know if Bama's going to win out either in terms of the rest of their season.
Yeah.
But hey, Bama keeps on winning. So
like I was bold enough. I bet on Arkansas this weekend to beat Alabama.
Some of those fans are wanting Sam Pittman fired. I wouldn't make that bet. I think Arkansas is kind of in a real.
I don't know. Situation. I trust Sam Pittman to come back and win this game. I don't know.
Plus, as the team that plays them next, I don't want Arkansas to win that game because Alabama historically does really well after losses. So I hope they beat Arkansas.
I hope for my bets Arkansas wins.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if you've got it. I mean, you can hit some of them right last week. The Iowa State, I didn't see coming against TCU. So
yeah,
that one. I told you Iowa State's awful, but hey, they ended up winning. So
I was 2-2. I got Iowa State and Louisville right, but I got Texas A&M wrong and Wake Forest wrong. So I was 2-2.
Yeah, because those two were pretty close. Because Wake, obviously, A&M.
Yeah, and they were close. And they were close losses.
Yeah, Wake Forest had a chance there late. I mean, Clemson. This is just crazy here in mid-October, and Clemson's just completely irrelevant. They're buried deep in like the ACC network. Like it's insane how irrelevant Clemson is this year,
and how fast they became relevant. And they were so fast. Like think about it. Like 3 years ago, Clemson was in the royalty of college football. And now they're in, as you said, deep in the bottom of ACC network.
Yeah, it's crazy. But one note, and I want to talk about, though, Mark Stoops. I mean, good God, the crying by Mark Stoops after losing 51-13 to Georgia, telling a fan on a phone call-in show that if you want us to compete with Georgia, you should give us more money. What?
I mean, first of all, Kentucky coaches needs to stop whining and have to, because Mark Stoops just following Calipari's role and whine to the media if the team doesn't perform well. And it's funny, Calipari whined in comparison to the football team, and now the football coach whines to the fans because the team can't win top tier teams.
Yeah, I mean, every time they play a top 5 team, they get ran out of the stadium. I mean, this is like when they went to Neyland last year and got ran out of the stadium. Like, Kentucky has a ceiling as a football program, and that is what it is. No amount of money is going to change that in the short term. It just isn't. Like, Georgia is so far ahead of Kentucky, it's unreal. And plus, the thing about Kentucky is they literally play the exact same style of football. If you want to beat Georgia, you got to do something different. And Kentucky is clearly not
And,
willing. They're out here going out and getting washed up transfer quarterbacks.
and also, Mark Stoops talk about giving money to the football program. They have to compete with their basketball program because Kentucky basketball also needs a lot of money to attract players in this new NIL age and one and done situations. So Mark Stoops, and there were signs about that. He has to compete with Calipari for the same pool of money because there's not much wealthy donors down in Lexington.
Well, yeah, obviously it's Kentucky first and foremost. We don't have to go further into that. I mean, there's so many people who can pay for a round of 32 losses every single year uh, with elite NBA talent. But um, yeah, it's just I think for Kentucky, I think they have to ask themselves, what do we want from a football program? Do we really want to be an SEC contender or not? Because if you do, then you have to really commit to the program. You have to upgrade your facilities. You have to really pump in that money as a program. And they just haven't historically done that,
I
especially with Texas and OU coming. It's going to become that much harder for Kentucky.
Then I think about it like in basketball, I think Kentucky still kind of you know uh, deserves to be in the SEC, but Kentucky football would have belonged way better and be way more competitive in the ACC.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they would win the ACC every now and then, and for sure. But yeah, but I mean, I think overall as an athletic program, they deserve to be in the SEC. I mean, they're a founding member. Um, they're a good enough institution to be in the
No,
SEC.
I say they don't deserve to be in the SEC, but just saying the football team would have better chances and would have even attract more money playing the ACC because then they'll have more chances in that conference.
Right, but like I mean, they still win 8, 9, 10 games in the SEC. It's like not like they're complete. It's not like they're Vanderbilt who doesn't have a single double digit winning season in the history of their program in the SEC. So, I mean, there are levels of ineptitude, and Kentucky has won national championships before. 1960 was the last time they've won a national championship more recently than our Vols' next opponent in Texas A&M. It's a fun fact right there, but you know, saying you lost Georgia because you didn't have enough money is ridiculous. And I'll be curious to see if that affects the team morale moving forward. Of course, the Vols play them here in 2 weeks from Saturday. But we've got two tough games before then. Before we go into the Vols, though, I just want to talk about the game I went to real quick. I went to the Mocs game down at Finley Stadium. And also, we're in the top of the ninth now in LA, or Arizona rather, and the Diamondbacks just got their first out. So the Dodgers are down to 2 outs left on their season. But this Mocs game was insane. It was a top 20 matchup. It was the 17th ranked Western Carolina Catamounts at the 20th ranked Chattanooga Mocs. And this thing was a shootout, back and forth all day. It ended up being a 52-50 final for Western Carolina. It looked like the Mocs had won the game on a last-second touchdown with like 53 seconds to go. But then Western Carolina had some big plays and won it at the end. Unfortunately, some turnovers in the second half, and I really think a really weak call by the Mocs head coach, Rusty Wright, to settle for a field goal in the first half cost the Mocs. In a shootout, you got to get every single point you can, and the Mocs just were not able to do that. But still, it was an amazing game to watch in person. Reminded me a bit of the Music City Bowl down to the ending that I saw in person. Thankfully, I'm not as attached to the Mocs as I am to the Vols, so even with the last-second loss for Chattanooga, it was still a great game to watch. Off to Knoxville, though. Vols, they're on a bye week. Always nice to get a break, but it is time to endure a gauntlet of some really tough games, starting with Texas A&M in a checkered kneeling. And first, talking about Texas A&M. I mean, I think that loss to Bama with this Bama team not being able to run the ball, having like 13 rushing yards the entire day, but still managing to lose to them. Awful loss for Jimbo Fisher. I think for Jimbo Fisher, his seat is on fire. And I think he's got to win this game, or else the wheels could come off for Texas A&M.
Oh yeah, I think definitely, and I still this feels like a revenge game. I don't know if you agree with me because in 2016, if you think about it, the Vols after that really amazing win against Georgia, they went to College Station and went to overtime to Texas A&M and lost. If somehow Tennessee would have won that game, that season would have been totally different. Different. That loss to Texas A&M on the road, it kind of pairs a little bit with that South Carolina loss last year.
A little bit, although the Vols did that to themselves when they had 7 fumbles that day. I mean, Alvin Kamara had like 500 yards rushing or something. It was unbelievable that day, but we couldn't hold on to the football to save our lives for whatever reason. And also, I think you have to remember too 2020, that game as well. How just
Ah,
I,
that
I
that
will
game
watch that. I
that
watched that thing
game,
in the press box, and
yeah,
that might have been the most painful sporting. Well, I mean, okay, not the most painful, but in terms of just pure entertainment value, that might have been the most agonizing sporting experience of my life. It's basically the sporting equivalent to being waterboarded. Was that Texas A&M game?
yeah, like Texas A&M definitely, and for them, the game fell no value because they didn't get into the college football playoff. They kept at number 5.
Yeah, by that point, I just wanted it to be all over in 2020. But yeah, that
And,
16 game,
and that game originally was in November.
oh
Remember?
yeah, but it got pushed back because of of COVID. Um, but yeah, I really honestly I don't really hold like hard will against A&M for 16. I remember the Carolina and Vandy losses a lot more than the A&M one in terms of just my visceral um, feelings about the losses. But obviously that was under Kevin Sumlin. But I just from the Tennessee perspective, I think I just really want our team to really treat this as a huge game because I am concerned that our team could look ahead to Bama next week.
The Diamondbacks are in the NLCS.
Yep, because I'm seeing the final out right now. So congratulations to Arizona. They will move on to play either Atlanta or Philadelphia in the NLCS. Dodgers paid a lot of money to get swept. Congratulations, you got played. So I find that pretty funny. Um, anyway, but I hope the Vols don't look ahead to Alabama. Because obviously that's going to be a huge matchup next week in Tuscaloosa. There's going to be the whole revenge factor for Bama. The whole potential maybe for the Vols to try to go for 2 in a row on Bama. But we got to play A&M first because A&M obviously is very talented. But they just haven't put it all together. Defensively against Miami, they got shredded. Offensively, without Connor Wegman, their offense is stagnant. But they still have some talent, like Anaya Smith, for example, is someone that I think is really a potential problem for the Vols. And I think it's going to be a tight one. And I think, what I want to see is, was that defense we saw against South Carolina the real Tennessee defense? Guys like James Pierce, guys like, like Amari Thomas, are they able to get to the quarterback to the same effectiveness like we saw against South Carolina? On offense, can we establish the run in a similar manner that we did against South Carolina? And obviously, we're still going to have Joe Milton, and Joe Milton has been maligned at times this year. There's been times where a lot of the fan bases wanted Nico Iamaleava on the field, but obviously, Joe Milton is still the guy. Can he avoid making the big mistakes here? The first game on CBS this year, and it's going to be in front of these checkerboards. I'll line up behind me, even though I still disagree with it being for Texas A&M, but they've decided to go ahead and do it for Texas A&M anyway. So it
I
is
think
what it
they
is.
chose this game because the most competitive game uh, Tennessee has at home, because they're not going to risk that to put it against Georgia.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. We did that in 2017 and lost 41-0. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably wise. Um, so what are the keys to victory? What do we need to do to beat Texas A&M?
I mean, like you said, kind of look at the Miami A&M game and kind of trying to figure out how they pushed A&M. And I bet on the Vols, so give me the Vols.
Yeah, I think we should be able to take some deep shots here. I think because I feel like we haven't seen a ton of Joe Milton's arm this year. And I think it's partially due to defenses. They've really played to respect Milton's arm. Like they have played deep and they said, all right, we're not going to let Milton throw 80 yards on us. I'm curious if A&M tries that again against us. But if they do try that against us, run the ball. With Cooper Mays, especially with another week to get more healthy, we should be able to run the ball very effectively. I want us to pound the ground and then take play action deep shots at Joe Milton. That is the way. That's in a way, even though we run a very fast tempo offense, we low key secretly are an old school football team. We can run the football really well, and I think our defense can get after the quarterback really well. And our secondary, I think, has improved a ton as well. So I think those factors. I think Max Johnson is nowhere close to as good a quarterback as Connor Wegman. Um, I think A&M eternally has some issues because if Fisher and Petrino on the same staff, you knew that's going to have some issues. So I like the Vols here too. I have them winning 24-20. I think it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring, especially for by Josh Heupel standards. But I like the Vols to get it done. Anyway, looking at some other games here. Week 7. I can't believe it's already week 7. The football season goes just way, way too fast. But first and foremost, in terms of underrated games outside of what we already have mentioned here, and I think in terms of underrated games, I think Syracuse at Florida State is an underrated game.
So underrated. I mean, tickets are going for $10
At Florida State?
at Florida State.
Wow. They have the number 4 team in the country too.
Yeah, like
That's weird.
it's a conference matchup.
Yeah. They're just waiting for Miami over there in those parts, I think. But it's a noon game, so I'm curious to see if Syracuse kind of catches them napping a bit. So I think that could be kind of interesting. What's the underrated game that you have?
Um, Miami and North Carolina. I think it makes me angry. If it wasn't for that stupid decision, this game would be 5-0 against a 5-0, deciding who controls their fate in the ACC title game. But it's not.
Absolutely. Also, I think Florida South Carolina is very interesting as well. In terms of, I feel like whoever loses that game is just going to have an awful season. Both teams are kind of reeling, but if Florida wins, they'll be 5-2. And I think for them, that would put them in a position to have a really successful season compared to preseason expectations. Because right now they're 4-2. For South Carolina, they have to win that game. Beamer needs this game, or otherwise the wheels are going to come falling off in Columbia. But in terms of a potential upset special, I think, in terms of looking at the top 25, I really think that Duke and NC State could be a potential upset there. Because I know Riley Leonard, he's been struggling with injury. I'm not sure if he's back this week or not. NC State has really been struggling this year. But I think for Duke, at a certain point, the pressure's going to start rationing up on them in terms of not screwing around, not screwing up. Uh, but I could see a scenario where NC State goes over to Durham and pulls off the win.
My upset's gonna be Missouri beating Kentucky in Lexington.
Hmm. And
So
that's the first game I was going to ask about is Kentucky and Mizzou. So you have Mizzou beating Kentucky and Lexington.
yeah,
I'm going to go Kentucky. It's a night game. And I still think Kentucky and Missouri are massive frauds. They have no defense. And they really just offensively, I think they were low key kind of disappointing. LSU had no defense, has no defense this year, and they couldn't take advantage of that. Give me Kentucky.
so my bets, I made my bets with William Turtida with him. So I bet 5 games. So I bet Arkansas to beat Alabama. I bet Tennessee to beat Texas A&M. I bet Auburn to beat LSU. I bet USC to beat Notre Dame, and I bet Missouri to beat Kentucky. I put 12 reais, and if all those results happen, I get 2,151 reais.
If Arkansas and Auburn both win those games, I would be stunned. So I wish you luck because that would be insane results. I just don't see it happening. I think Auburn does not have the offense to take advantage of LSU's defensive weaknesses.
I go for bold. I go for bold.
Yeah, and Arkansas is at Tuscaloosa, so I think that also is not a great situation for the Razorbacks, considering that they are reeling hard from just an awful start to the season. So we've picked Kentucky, Mizzou, Oregon State, or UCLA at Oregon State. UCLA just upset Washington State last week. Oregon State is moving along right along. DJ Ukulele is doing what he's doing. 8 p.m. game on Fox and Corvallis. Who wins that one?
Give me UCLA. I think Chip Kelly is really improving this team.
He is, but I think night game in Corvallis, Oregon State has a chip on their shoulder all year. I like the Beavers to pull it off. Next game, Miami, North Carolina. I think you said you had UNC winning this one.
Yeah, UNC.
I would agree. I think Drake May is going to torch this Miami defense. I think it'll be a close game, but as we have previously seen, Mario Cristobal might make a stupid decision to lose in this game. I like UNC. Night game in South Bend, which unfortunately has lost a bit of its luster, I think, because not only Notre Dame losing Louisville, USC, they're I think they might be fraudulent too. I mean, they struggle on the road with a bad Arizona State team and then get taken to free overtimes by Arizona. I mean, both of the Arizona teams are not very good. Honestly, this might be a foolish pick. Give me the Fighting Irish. I like Notre Dame to pull off the upset and beat USC at home because I think, this could be a game where Sam Hartman shows up and plays really well. And, I said earlier, what does Notre Dame have to play for? Well, there is one thing they can play for, ruin USC's season. So I like the Fighting Irish to beat USC.
I'm gonna keep all my bets. Give me USC.
And the unquestioned game of the week here, the only undefeated matchup, top 10, that rivalry game in the North, which I think it's one of the most underrated games in the college football. Oregon and Washington, those two fan bases hate each other. This is actually really a Big Ten game. If you think about it now, technically about to be a Big Ten game. Oregon and Washington. Games in Seattle. I think it's going to be epic. But I like the Huskies.
Give me the Huskies.
Absolutely. That'd be 2 in a row for the Huskies against Oregon. Some other quick notes as well. NHL returns this week. They started yesterday. Predators had a tough loss in the first game. So, yay hockey. But, obviously it's a long time until Stanley Cup comes back. But I'm sure our friend Dylan Becker will be keeping tabs on all of it. And will inform us when the time comes.
Yeah, he needs hockey right now because his beloved Orioles let him down.
Yeah. Um, the quick NASCAR, AJ Allmendinger won the Charlotte Rebel, his first win of the season. Road course ringer. Not shocked that he won on a road course. Unfortunately, Bubba Wallace, in addition to Brad Keselowski, Ross Chastain, and Kyle Busch, were eliminated from the playoffs. All of them had really good seasons. Bubba Wallace had his best season by far. And really, if he hadn't blown it at Texas a few weeks ago, he would have been in the round of 8. But I think he totally should be proud of his season, as well as Keselowski. I mean, he's a self-driver owner now. And his driver, Chris Buescher, is still in the playoffs. So, I mean, he still has a lot to root for here. Kyle Busch coming over to RCR had a great first season with them. So, all of them have to be proud of. So, the round of 8, the 8 drivers remaining will be going to Vegas, Homestead, Miami, and Martinsville in this round. And at the end of this round will be your final 4 drivers who will race for the championship at Phoenix. So 4 races left. I can't believe that the NASCAR season is already at its conclusion. And we ran out of time last week, but they announced the new schedule for next year. And some of the new additions include a race at Iowa, which will be pretty interesting. I don't know if it'll be the most exciting race. There was a rumor that they were going to race in Montreal at the F1 track up there, but that didn't work out. So we will not see that. And there's been a bit of a de-emphasis on road course racing, with the Indianapolis road course going back to the traditional Indianapolis Oval that IndyCar races on for the Indy 500. And also, just to finish off U.S. sports, the USMT is playing an exhibition on Saturday against Germany. I saw that they were advertising that during the baseball playoffs. And, obviously it's an exhibition. So I'm not really sure what, stuff they're going to be looking for during these games. But, playing a team like Germany, that's going to test you no matter what. So hopefully they can.
And you should and you should take advantage of playing European teams on the FIFA break, because it's been harder and harder because Europeans play against themselves. So whenever you have a chance to test your team against a European powerhouse like Germany, is a great opportunity for the US.
Yeah, well, I guess that means there's no Premier League this week, so which is kind of
No.
sad. There's been some crazy games in the Premier League, but this is not a British podcast, so we'll leave that for those people. But that's all we have in America. What's going on down in Brazil? Because it seems like Flamingo, they're like a kleptomaniac in a mall, and they can't figure out what coach they want ever.
Yeah, you defined perfectly. Flamengo has a new head coach, which I have to say they made a really great hire. Chichi, if you're as rich as Flamengo, big brand as Flamengo, you have to go for the best coach available. And Tite, he was available. He said he didn't work. He didn't want to work in 2023, but I guess the statute of limitation came closer, came sooner than he expected. And what attracted his job to Tite is that he has no pressure this year. He has no pressure. He can do really bad. He's not going to get fired. He's looking ahead of 2024. He's going to be able to renew his roster. I believe some of the key players is going to leave, and he's going to really set up this team for 2024. Like, Flamengo might fight for the Brazilian championship, which is really hard because they are 11 points behind Botafogo, and they are out of the Libertadores, going directly to the Libertadores zone. So, I think Flamengo is already looking into 2024. That's why Tite was hired, and that's why he accepted the job in October, because he is already going to use these 2 months to see who's going to stay in Flamengo and who's going to leave. And the big question in terms of contracts of Flamengo, like the NFL, is Bruno Henrique. Bruno Henrique has been a key part of this Flamengo dynasty. He's one of the most important players Flamengo has in the last 4 years, but his contract is going to run out in December. And there's big teams coming to get him. And he said he's not going to play in any team in Rio, like Vasco or Fluminense or Botafogo. But Palmeiras, he didn't say no. And Palmeiras has the money to get him. And Palmeiras front office really needs to make a big hire because fans are furious, furious with Palmeiras. Palmeiras just got eliminated in the Libertadores semifinals on Thursday on penalty shootouts versus Boca Juniors. Like Palmeiras just cannot eliminate Boca Juniors in the Libertadores playoffs. They just can't. In 2000, they lost the finals, 2001, 2018. Now in 2023, they just can't eliminate Boca Juniors. And the Libertadores finals in Rio de Janeiro on November 4th is going to be Fluminense and Boca Juniors, a rematch of the 2008 semifinals. So I think it's going to be epic showdown. Fluminense is a little bit more favorite because they play a better style of football, a better style of soccer. But Boca Juniors is one of those tricky teams that when they get to the big spotlight, they never shrink. Boca Juniors never shrink. You can question about their style of soccer, about how they play, but they never shrink. They always showed up in the big moments. So it's going to be a really big Libertadores matchup. But back to Palmeiras. Palmeiras in crisis. So Palmeiras president Leila Pereira came to a press conference today and said that without her company, her companies, I forgot the term.
Or stakeholders or something like that.
No, without her partnership, without her sponsorship, Palmeiras would be in second division. She literally said that. She said that if it wasn't for her and for her husband and for her companies and for the money that she and she and her husband gave to Palmeiras as sponsorship for the last 8 years, Palmeiras would have been in second division because she said that when she got to Palmeiras, Palmeiras didn't got relegated, and she said the fans know how because she made a joke because Palmeiras didn't got relegated in 2014 because of Santos beating Vitória, and so she want to sue Palmeiras hooligan kind of group Mancha Verde because of all the protests they made not only in Palmeiras Stadium but all the banking of Crefisa. Literally, they went and vandalized Crefisa stores, which the Palmeiras sponsor. It's like if Cowboys fans are mad at Jerry Jones and they go to the oil areas and vandalize the oil companies that Jerry Jones has.
I mean, I guess I can understand to an extent, right? Because, like, even to this day, like, I don't go to pilots because of the whole situation with the Haslams and UT. Like, I will go to Weigels. The whole situation that erupted in the whole Shiano situation. But to say that you alone are the reason why a team succeeds or don't succeed is insane. Like, any team is more than one person. I thought we learned this lesson from Antonio Brown in the Arena Football League, right? Because he thought, like, oh, I alone am going to save Luna football. It just you can't have that mentality and be successful, and and that's in any organization. Anyone that thinks it's a savior, you should immediately run. I mean, that's how most cults start.
And what's funny is now Leila Pereira is suing Mancha Verde, is in war with Mancha Verde. But when she was, at Palmeiras Council and trying to get it as Palmeiras president, she literally kind of bribed Mancha Verde, kind of financing Mancha Verde's carnival performance to get popularity. And now she hates the same group that she financed. And also, Palmeiras spent a lot of money in signings in players. It was like 300 million reais, but they just couldn't find really starting players that was gonna really make a difference because they lost Scarpa, Danilo, Dudu got hurt, so they just couldn't replace those key players that were vital to the Palmeiras success of 2020, 2021. They just couldn't. And Rafael Veiga is not playing the same way he was last year after that injury against Atlético Paranaense last year's Libertadores semifinals. Gustavo Gomes, which played terribly on Thursday, he allegedly wanted to leave to Saudi Arabia, but Palmeiras didn't sell him. So, and now Abel Ferreira, there were rumors he doesn't want to stay for next year. He has contract until 2020, December 2024. Leila Pereira said she wants to keep Abel Ferreira, but she said it's also up to him. I don't know if he wants to stay because he doesn't look happy, and he feels that he has no resources, that his roster is limited, and is a lot of dependent on young talent. Hendrick right now is one of the best players Palmeiras has. A 17 year old. I know he's a one of once in a lifetime generation, but you
I
shouldn't
cannot
rely.
wait to watch him on an international stage. By the way, cannot wait to see him.
Oh my god, the way he played on like it's still mind blowing to me. I was at Arena Barueri on Sunday broadcasting Palmeiras, and I try to keep an eye on Hendrick, and it still blows my mind that he's a 17-year-old play with professionals, and he looked completely dominant. He looked completely like, of course, he's not gonna do amazing things all the time, but he doesn't look lost. Every time he gets the ball, he gets the Santos defense in trouble. Like on Thursday, he got in a halftime. He made a like imagine this in the biggest game of your season, you come in at halftime and you change the game. This is how impressive Hendrick is. Real Madrid made a great investment, and I think it's going to pay off.
Yeah, I mean, I think in 4 to 5 years, he's going to be the next Mbappe. He's going to be the name in soccer. By 2030, everybody's going to know who this guy is. And especially that we get to talk about him before he's a true superstar on a global stage.
Yeah, I'm just privileged to broadcast him. I feel privileged to see him grow. And I think when he's gonna get a little bit intimidating in Real Madrid, but I think by like as you said, 2030, he's gonna look like Vinny Jr. I think Vinny Jr. is gonna look, and also think about it, he's gonna have Vinny Jr. to mentor him probably. So I think
Yeah,
he
like
is
it's an interesting question here because I know NBA is about to start in a few weeks. Who is going to be the bigger global star in 10 years? Victor Wembanyama or Endrick?
or you can ask, is gonna be Hendrick or LeBron James' son as well.
Well, LeBron James' son might have some medical issues that kind of
Uh,
preclude that, the whole cardiac situation. So I don't, I think
uh,
unfortunately that might derail his hopes.
But that's true. Like Victor Wembanyama or Hendrick might be the question. That's true in the next decade. I think probably I can see both being superstars.
Yeah. I think it's the next generation. It's kind of weird because the superstars we grew up with, they're growing older, they're retiring, but now it's time for a new generation showing up.
And last but not least, Brazilian Championship had week 26 last weekend. Botafogo, after struggling in the last four games and firing their coach, finally got a win 2-0 against their rival Fluminense. Of course, Fluminense, their mind is in Libertadores final. Their players are not going to put 100% effort right now. Like, think about it. Like, you have a Libertadores final to play in less than a month. And then in Brazilian Championship, you're fine. You're in seventh place. You're not gonna get relegated, and you're in a good position. So all the efforts of Fluminense from last Wednesday until November 4th is to get your roster ready for Libertadores final. So that's why probably the Fluminense's mind weren't there. That's why they lost 2-0 to Botafogo. But definitely that win gave Botafogo a confidence boost after having to fire the coach, and now the interim head coach is the idol. He used to be a former player idol, Lucio Flavio, and I don't see Botafogo losing this title. I mean, it's 9 points to Bragantino. I think it's too big of a difference. I think Botafogo right now is going to get back on track and is going to win Brazilian Championship after 28 years of a drought.
Okay, one game I want to know, what in the heck happened between Baja and Goiás? How did that end up being 6-4?
Oh my God, Goiás and Bahia! Wow, I mean that game was insane. It was truly insane. Like, and and the way that the game, the line happened, Goiás dominating first half, and then Bahia came out of nowhere to get in front, and then uh, Goiás got in front again, and on the last play of the game, Bahia scored to win. Oh my god! And that game has huge implications in the relegation zone because you know Goiás, if they won, they would have gone 30 points and be out of relegation zone. But Bahia, because of that win, is also going to stay out of relegation zone in this FIFA break. So that's
And
probably
see,
one of the
Vasco da Gama still is hanging out down there as well. They have not fixed
yeah,
things.
yeah, Vasco. I mean, I thought they was gonna get better. They play well against Santos. 4-1 on Soulsman's leading. Against Sao Paulo, they were a little bit scared. They should have been. They were too conservative. And this relegation fight is gonna be insane because for me, from Goiás to Corinthians, all those teams gonna fight for to save themselves for relegation zone. I even put Corinthians in this fight.
I think even the Nacional and Cuiabá, like they, 2 or 3 bad
Yeah,
weeks, and they're right there too. I mean, there's what from 11 to 18 is 5 points. Even
yeah.
really Sao Paulo, I mean, they're only 8 points above that. Like there's still
Mm,
13 weeks. Do not take your foot off the pedal. I think Atletico Mineiro up is going to be fine though.
yeah. So Paul is interesting because they have a tricky situation. Their year is done. They already in Libertadores. They got the title that they were desiring this season, Brazilian Cup. But that's true. They still have to make because the magic number is 45. If you get to 45 points, you do not get relegated. The magic number is 45 for safe salvation to relegation. So like São Paulo still needs to win like what 3 games to be comfortable. But Corinthians, I mean, the payroll that they have fighting for relegation is truly disappointing. Like Corinthians is just like Corinthians is going to get into their 4th year without a title, and if Corinthians were to be relegated, Duilio Montero's life is at risk because fans are mad at him for not getting titles. Imagine if Corinthians, with a payroll of millions, getting relegated. I mean, Duílio Monteiro Alves, Corinthians president. If I was him, I would have fly out of the country. I would have stayed out of Brazil as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's just unfortunate to hear because I know they have such a rabid fan base.
Yeah,
So,
and
but I'm
in their what?
go ahead.
No, and I was gonna say like, and in their politics, Corinthians has an election in November, so there's a chaos inside Corinthians organization because of this election coming up in November.
But in terms of those teams chasing Botafogo right now, which you got Bragantino 9 points behind, Grêmio, Palmeiras, and Flamengo 11 points right now. Who out of those four chasing is the most likely to hunt them down over the last third of the season?
I mean, of course, you're gonna say, "Oh, Bragantino second." I just don't trust the team yet. I just the roster is they don't have a difference maker. Of course, great season they're having. Of course, Pedro Caixinha, great coach, but I just don't see it. I thought Grêmio was gonna be the contender, but they are not playing well in the last 4 games. Only one win in the last 4 games. So I'm disappointed at Grêmio. Grêmio for me was going to be the team to fight for the title. Palmeiras and Flamengo, I mean, uh, they're in I they're not in rebuilding mode. I call them they are in transition mode. It's like they might find a way to get to like 3 wins in a row and get closer to Botafogo. I don't know if they have the team. Both Flamengo and Palmeiras have the stamina to be competitive this season. That's why I know Botafogo fans don't want to hear that, and of course this title means a lot to them. It's just Botafogo is still has a big lead, not because of the things, not because only because of the things, not because of only Botafogo, but the teams that are not playing the well as they should. But I think Palmeiras and Flamengo they have to. get some sort of reaction, especially Palmeiras, because Palmeiras is out of Libertadores and they only have the Brazilian Championship, but they lost three in a row. So if they are thinking about title, they have to come back and win. I mean, they had a tough loss on Sunday against Santos. So we'll see. This fight's gonna be interesting to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. So definitely interested to see if Botafogo can hang on, go wire to wire.
Yeah. And and just to finalize, Brazil plays on Thursday for the qualifying against Venezuela in Cuiabá. I don't think there's going to be a no-brainer. Brazil's going to eviscerate Venezuela. Like I even
Yeah,
took
they're
my
gonna eviscerate them like Venezuela's currency. So
oh, that's a good point. That's true.
uh,
Feel bad for them, but that's true. There's no way Brazil's gonna win like 3 or 4-0. I even joke with my colleague at the radio station. He also works for the newspapers. Like the article is written. Like only thing change is gonna be the result. The article is like Brazil plays really well and beats Venezuela. Like there's there's like this game's gonna be like a friendly game. Like this even this South American qualifying is ridiculous. Like you have 10 teams and you qualify 6 direct and 1 for playoff. Like no way Brazil and Argentina is gonna get out.
oh yeah,
So Brazil and Argentina literally are have to play those games, and they have to be competitive because of course they have to be dominant and be in a World Cup, but they don't see a challenge, especially challenge themselves for the World Cup. But speaking of World Cup, I don't know if you saw that in 2030, FIFA is really considering play in 2 different continents in 2030. So FIFA is thinking about doing the opening game and some first week matchups in Argentina and Uruguay to honor the first World Cup in 1930 in Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay, and then the later matches, especially by the second and third week in the group stage and the playoffs in Spain, Morocco, and Portugal. So it's going to be 6 countries involved in 2030, according to FIFA officials. How
why
crazy
wouldn't they
is that?
just hold it? Why wouldn't they just hold it all in South America?
I guess they couldn't because it was also because of the World Cup being U.S., Mexico, and Canada is already the America's turn. It should be. It's like you is Europe, Asia, America, then Europe again. There's a like a rotation, but they have some. But it's gonna look bad if they don't honor Uruguay and the 100th anniversary of the World Cup. So that's the solution they find. It's weird. It's
Yeah, and also too, I did see that in 2034, Saudi Arabia is bidding for that World Cup as well, and I really hope they don't get it, but I would feel like they have a pretty good shot at it considering how much pull they have. Although I wonder if the current situation in the Middle East could affect that.
yeah. But if Qatar got a World Cup, Saudi Arabia definitely is gonna want that, especially with all that soccer value that Saudi Arabia has. And I don't know. FIFA, they're really making decisions to make soccer more unaffordable to real life fans and make it into a TV program.
Oh, absolutely. Because definitely, if it goes to Saudi Arabia, I'm not showing up for previous statements I've made on this show and in other
Oh yeah.
arenas. But yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. That's certainly going to be an interesting World Cup. I'm just looking forward to the one that's going to be here in 3 years. Of course, right now the Olympics buildup has gone nuts. NBC is pruning the heck out of that. So, um,
Oh, speaking of which, Brazil qualified in volleyball to the Olympics. So that was a huge relief. We had to literally battle against Italy at home, but Brazil in women's volleyball got in, but the coach resigned.
mm, why did he resign?
Medical issues.
That sucks. But I mean, I think in Paris though, that's going to be an interesting Olympics for sure. Um, But yeah, I think that is the end of the line here for episode 98. Feels like 98. For Gustavo Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nick Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. And you have been listening to the only American and Brazilian sports podcast, 2 countries, 2 Americas, all sports. Stay tuned as we're 2 away from 100.